The United States has officially had 2 quarters in a row of negative economic growth, which is a good indicator we're going into the R word, a recession. And it feels obvious to most of us. Inflation has been taking larger bites out of our dollar's value than me when I'm biting into my home smoked burgers. What? I need to talk to my scriptwriter about better analogies. Even with a budget, it can be hard to make the money stretch far enough each month. So the question we're going to look at today is this. What can we do when a recession destroys our finances? I've got 3 of the most game-changing things that you can do, and the first is more defensive in nature. So hit that like button and let's get started with number 1. The number 1 thing we're going to do is update our emergency fund. Back in 2020, Bailey and I put a lot of work into getting our emergency fund fully funded. Most people say between 3 and 6 months of expenses. We compromised at 4.5. And when it comes to necessary expenses, our budget really hasn't changed drastically in the last 2 years. But when I recalculated our emergency fund recently, I figured out that we're down to 4 months of expenses just because of inflation and increased property taxes. Property taxes. We still have some buffer from that 3-month mark, but you might not. Now, you may have put a lot of work into getting your emergency fund fully funded, and if so, I commend you. Feels good, right? Just realize you may need to update that emergency fund because of inflation, and especially if your life situation has changed, like if your landlord just increased rent, or if a stork just dropped off a kid at your front step. Updating your emergency fund is something that you should look into doing regularly anyways, but especially when high inflation sets in. Number 2, update your needs versus wants list. A recession is hard on many people because they don't update their needs versus wants list. Now, this is an exercise I do with anyone who goes through financial coaching. Link in the description. Now, basically, you take your budget and you break down your expenses into 2 columns. Needs on one side, wants on the other. And if you don't have a budget, you can still perform this exercise, so stick with us. Just take your expenses by looking at your bank or credit card statement and break those down into your needs and wants. Then when you've placed each expense into a column, go through it and revise it multiple times. Because sometimes we think something in our budget is a need when in reality it's just a want and we've been justifying it this whole time. Trust me, I know. Ask yourself, do I need this to survive? And be brutally honest. For example, mortgage is a need. Entertainment is clearly a want. Then we get something in a gray area, like chocolate milk. To many, including myself, it seems like a need. But can I survive on water? Technically, yes. It may not be as fun surviving on water, and I may get some pushback for this, but I do in fact believe that chocolate milk is a want. Once you have your needs versus wants, figure out what items to put in your budget, because you only have so much money to go around. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a single want in your budget, but you should take care of your needs first and then fill in the remainder of your income in less necessary categories. And maybe you just cut back on a category instead of completely eliminating it. Maybe you put $50 into restaurants instead of $100, or $100 into entertainment instead of $300. Whatever it is, be honest with yourself on your needs versus your wants. And then create your budget if you don't have one already, because that's going to be your greatest tool, aside from your income, for fighting inflation and recessions. Number 3, hit the subscribe button. Wait a second. My scriptwriter went off the rails on that one. Now, while I do want you to subscribe if you're getting value from this, number 3 is actually pay off debt / invest. During a recession, paying off consumer debt should be high on your priorities, because having any sort of debt will always add another level of stress to an already stressful economic situation. And when you get all your non-mortgage debt paid off, then you can start investing, because if you're able to afford it, a recession is actually the perfect time for you to invest, because your invested money will grow much larger after a recession than after a time of prosperity. But don't do either of these at the expense of caring for your 4 walls. That's food, housing, clothes, and transportation. These are the top of your necessities. So don't go on investing while you can't keep your lights on. A recession can be unnerving, especially for those already stressed about their money. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, set up a free call with me so we can determine if financial coaching is right for you. Link in the description down below. Otherwise, a budget is a powerful tool during a recession, so watch this video next if you want to get my take on the best budget apps out there. Yeah, you're on camera.
I'm on camera? Oh, okay. Boy, what do I want to tell the world? Subscribe.
That'll work.